Another of our monthly webinar organized by the IU ASEAN Global Gateway Office. My name is Farida Pawan, and I am the Academic Director for the office. Just in time for the holidays, we are honored today to have two scholars in tourism management and hospitality and gastronomy tourism. So we have quite an exciting webinar for you today. Amelda Pramezwary is the department chair of the Hospitality Management Program and senior lecturer at Universitas Pelita Harapan in Jakarta. And David Smiley is the coordinator of the Tourism, Hospitality, and Event Management Program at the School of Public Health at Indiana University. And so they'll delve into projects on tourism, on gastronomy tourism, and its role in sustainable development, cultural preservation, and the empowerment of local community. The webinar will take the form of 30 minutes of conversation, and this will be followed by another 20 to 30 minutes of questions and answers for the audience, from the audience. But audience members, you can post your questions at the Q&A section at any point in time during the webinar, and at 30 minutes, we'll start drawing them out and sharing them with the speakers for their responses. And so Imelda and David, we welcome you both. We have so much to learn from, and we are looking from both of you, and we are looking forward to engaging with you and to learning with you. Please take it away.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Farida. Hi, David. Hi, everyone. First of all, before we start, I want to greet every one of you. Good evening from Indonesia to all of you who are attending from IU, and also good morning from students of IU, participants from IU. And I have my students here, David, along with me. I cannot see them, but I do understand. Yeah, Steve has made them appeared in another screen. So it's just so great that we have this opportunity to get along together, talk more about what we've been done so far in Indonesia, and also David is going to tell us more about wines in Italy. Well, I think to fasten up, without any further ado, perhaps David would like to say something before we start.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome everyone today. Thanks for taking time out of your morning here in the States and your evening in Indonesia to spend some time with us. Hopefully this will be some enlightening material. I think that, sustainable gastronomy is a growing body, and there's limited research, but we'll talk more about that as we get into it. But I want to pass it back to Imelda because I want to make sure, if you go out and you search the word sustainable gastronomy, there's quite a few different definitions. So I'm going to have Imelda give us the definition that we're going to kind of frame our talk around today. So Imelda, you want to let the audience know what we're talking about here?
Allow me to share my PowerPoint presentation. So is it on already? Can you see it, everyone?
Yes, we see it now.
Sorry, yes, can you see? All right, so since we're talking about sustainable gastronomy, well, why don't we give an insight about what is sustainable gastronomy? That want to know about gastronomy tourism first, David. Well, according to the UNWTO, as we all know, gastronomy tourism is a type of tourism activity that is characterized by the visitor's experience. It is linked with food and related products and activities while they are traveling along. Many of the visitors would love to do activities which is related with finding something that is authentic, finding something that is traditional. and they want to experience culinary innovatives in terms of something to learn, something to experience, something that they can bring back as memories well when they're traveling. So visiting activities such as going to local producers or perhaps participating in
Actually, Imelda, you may want to put your slides down and to get your connection a little more stable.
Or simply stop your camera, Imelda, and that may help us hear your voice a little bit better. So thank you, audience, for your patience while we adjust our bandwidth here.
And while she's working on that, I do want to mention that we did post 2 articles. Imelda had posted one and I had posted one as well. And so that'll be part of our discussion today. I can give you a brief overview of my article while she is getting her bandwidth situated. My article was entitled Wine Tourism Sustainability Awareness, a Consumer Behavior Perspective. And basically, I thought, as I indicated at the beginning, there hasn't been a lot of research done in this field, especially as it relates to wine tourism and sustainability. And so this article was an attempt to understand what motivates people to participate in wine tourism and to generate word of mouth about their experiences there. And so consumers are becoming much more aware of wine tourism and it being an activity that can either be a major part of their travel or it can be a subset of their travel. And so, the article here found that there was some relationship between word of mouth and a person's love for the product or the winery or the actual wine itself. And so we'll talk more about that, but hopefully we can get back to Imelda. I believe she's cut her camera off, so she probably has a more secure connection now. So Imelda, you're back, I believe.
back part for the interruption. My voice did. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi. Can you hear my voice, David?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm very sorry for the cut off. So getting back into the discussion about sustainable gastronomy. So if we see that the activities that is related with going to the visitors visit producers, participating in food festivals, or even attending cooking classes are the types of activities that a gastronomy tourism is really about. So, David, your introduction about wine is also related with gastronomy tourism, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in
Hello,
fact,
David. Uh-huh.
yeah, when you travel to a winery, whether it's within the States or internationally, and today I'm going to be talking about Italy because that's my international experience. I actually have continued to develop my appreciation of Italian wine I developed a class on wine and food tourism that I teach in the summer. And we spend in Sorrento 3 weeks in the Campania region. And so I'm very familiar with Southern Italy wines. I'm learning more about Northern Italy wines, but if you are a wine connoisseur, or even if you're just a wine novice, you will quickly realize that there are so many different wines in so many different regions that you really literally have to select a subset to focus on. I know when I first got into wine about 10 years ago, I solely learned Napa, California Cabernets. And so that's what I was drawn to initially. But
yes, in fact, David, going to the wineries or even visiting the farmers, the vineyard, and the baking process, to learning and experiencing local authentic beverages. And I think what you have experienced in Italy is something that the students really would like to hear about more. But our topic today is sustainable gastronomy. Perhaps we can move to the definition more onto what is sustainable gastronomy. Well,
Mhm.
sustainable gastronomy, the difference with gastronomy is when seek for a cuisine that takes into account where the ingredients are from, how the food is grown, or even it gets to our markets or eventually to our plates. That's what we call sustainable gastronomy. If we want to link the sustainability, the idea is that when we talk about sustainability, it is done in a way that is not wasteful of our natural resources, and it can be continued into the future without being detrimental to our environment or health. So, in other words, we're saying that if we talk about sustainable gastronomy, is we want to ensure that our food, what we eat, we want to make sure that the process is like you have just said recently, David. It's like slow food. Yeah, that's what sustainable is all about. But besides that, linking the four principles of sustainable tourism in gastronomy is also going to be our highlights for the talk tonight, David. Perhaps later on we can share to the students what actions can they really do in order to participate in the sustainable action when it relates to gastronomy.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So back to you, David.
Obviously we can do all the talking we want, but it takes action, right? And so Italy is one of the European Union's leading countries in terms of overall sustainability. And when we talk about sustainability in Italy, as you said, in sustainable gastronomy, it goes from the fields to the plate, right? Uh, it encompasses all aspects of the getting the food or the wine to the consumer.
Yes, that's right.
And I know you referenced the slow food movement, and the slow food movement, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the slow food movement was started in 1986 in Italy. Actually, what occurred was in 1986 in Italy, McDonald's came into Italy and they opened a restaurant at the Spanish Steps in Rome, in one of the most famous
Whoa.
plazas in Rome. And it created such an uproar because the Italians were not ready for fast food. And not only did McDonald's build a restaurant in one of the most high profile places in Rome, but at the time it was the largest McDonald's in the world. It sat 450 people. And so there were protests throughout Rome and throughout the country about this big corporation coming in and changing their way of life from, I don't know how many of you are aware that in Italy, and it was actually a culture shock to me the first time I went to Italy and I went out to my first meal and realized that lunch in Italy is a 2-hour event.
Wow.
And so,
So you really have to enjoy it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, my students and myself, being Americans, we're looking for our servers. And basically the way it works there is the servers leave you alone because they expect you to take 2 hours to eat your lunch. And so it is quite a bit of work to slow down your meal. So that is just part of the slow food movement, but it's also relates to production. It relates to using local resources, harvesting food that's indigenous to the area. And so slow food that movement began in 1986 just because of this McDonald's. So it was really a watershed moment for Italy.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, if you tell so much about what's going on with the gastronomy tourism in Italy, perhaps I can give you also a little bit about an overview of what Indonesia has done so far about gastronomy tourism in our country. So actually, the movement of gastronomy tourism in Indonesia started just recently, David. It's just our government has paid attention more seriously with commitments. I think it started when in 2017. Well, the milestone though up until now we already have so many events to promote our gastronomy. One of the events is Indonesia Spice Up the World. So it was in year 2021. We went on an exhibition in Dubai to showcase our spices and herbs in that exhibition. Indonesia is very potential, has massive potentials in gastronomy. We have 17,000 islands, moreover, and then 88 million acres of tropical forest. And the interesting part is we have 1,340 tribes with 40,000 over types of plants and 2,148 types of freshwater fish, and 2,500 types of salt fish water, and not to mention more over than 5,300 types of authentic Indonesian food. So that is quite a lot. Yeah, and if we see approximately 500 spice species of the world, 275 of them are situated in Southeast Asia, especially in Indonesia. So if we're talking about the gastronomy tourism in Indonesia, well, it has a very massive potential.
That's
So,
great. That's great.
pardon me. In Indonesia, perhaps I have to show this. Hang on. Hopefully, my connection is quite stable. So, can you see this? So this is the triangle concept of Indonesian gastronomy. Well, of course, food is always on top of everything. If we talk about food and culture, we have lots of ceremonies involved when we talk about food and culture in our country. So if we talk about food and history, not to mention our history being one of the country who has all of the spices exported, and even many countries are getting in Indonesia, invading our spices, is also one of the history. So spices is something that is really something we should treasure in Indonesia for Indonesian gastronomy. And if we talk about culture and history, there's always storytellings, many stories to be told, the untold, or even me myself sometimes haven't even heard about the story, even I'm an Indonesian person in Indonesia. So this triangle concept of Indonesian gastronomy is something that we are developing currently in Indonesia. Well, perhaps you can share also about what is currently going on in Italy in the case of the wine.
Yeah, thanks. Let's talk from an Italian perspective first about sustainable development, because it's a big part of what is going on in Italy. When we talk about, wines and vineyards and, the farmers that are growing these grapes, there's a lot of practices that they put in place that are leading to sustainable practices. So you'll find many vineyards in Italy have no irrigation. They leave it up to the weather to provide them rain and sustenance. So, Italy leads the European Union in food sustainability. They're part of the UN's Agenda 2030. Over 15%, 15.2% of the agricultural land in the country is dedicated to organic farming. So it is a big
Whoa.
part of what they do. And a lot of the exports that they send to the US, who is the primary uh, country that takes their exports, a lot of what they send is the organic products. As opposed to the US, where in the US we have farms, no one taking over our existing farms when people get older and retire. We have a different situation in Italy. There's actually over 55,000 farms that are led by people that are 35 and under. And so it is the top employer in the country, agriculture. And that has also had an impact on rural development. And so, as wine tourists come into Italy, they're coming into new locations. One of the things Italy is trying to do in the most popular destinations, Venice being a great example, that during the COVID, there was no one obviously traveling. And Venice realized that the water in Venice became so clear and unpolluted. And walking on the docks in Venice, they could actually see the bottom of the canals, which they had not seen in years. And so there are many of the high tourism places in Italy that are now trying to limit tourism. But the good news is that gives the rest of the country opportunities to develop tourism products to bring them to some of the smaller towns and cities in Italy. So,
Wow.
those things are things that are happening. And of course, sustainable wines are, whether those be wines using natural winemaking techniques or whether they are wines, biodynamic wines, where they're actually using the biodynamic calendar to harvest and pick and what have you, and not adding any sulfites, which are very common in
Whoa.
wines. And so there's a lot of things that Italy is doing, and Italy is on the forefront of currently.
Yeah, spreading the visitors to more smaller or villages or rural area is one of the sustainable tourism practice that they can do. It's part of the visitors management application or implementation in their country. Well, that's very good. Well, would you like to share some of your slides? Perhaps my students would like to know about the wines in Italy.
Yeah, let me pull these up.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think you might still be sharing.
No, I already stopped share.
Okay.
Yeah, we are viewing your screen now.
Okay. So are you all right? So
Okay.
yeah, let me just
Double click.
there we
There
go.
it is.
I got it now.
Okay.
Okay. So when we talk about Italy, basically the sustainable gastronomy, I'm talking primarily about wine today, but obviously it applies to food as well.
Yes.
And so
They have great foods there.
yeah, most tourists they find go to Italy either for the food or the wine,
Yes.
and in many cases both. And so this is actually a picture right here of that first McDonald's that I told you about
Whoa.
in Rome. So the people were not very happy about that. But let's talk about some of the development issues. So we talked a little bit about agricultural practices. They're trying to do soil conservation methods. They're trying to do organic. They are looking at and trying to understand the impact of development of using gastronomy tourism as a method of rural development. In fact, UNESCO has a project called the Creative Cities Project, in which they partnered with cities around the globe to try to create,
A route,
yeah,
a
and
gastronomic
so
route.
yep.
Yeah.
And so in Italy, basically, a lot of the ones they're doing are around gastronomy.
Wow.
And so that's and other things that Italy is doing from a sustainable packaging standpoint, their products. Barilla, who is over there, although actually, if you talk to Italians, if you said that you were going to get some Barilla pasta, they would shame you. But anyway, in Italy, Barilla, their boxes, if you recall, and you may still find some of them in America, had the little cellophane window in the box where you could see the pasta inside.
Oh.
And they were not able to recycle those boxes. And so over there, they said, no cellophane windows. You need 100% recyclable box to put your pasta in. And so that's just another
Sustainable
example.
action. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really great.
And obviously energy and water. And we already talked about, many vineyards not using irrigation, just using natural rainwater. And then they're also looking for investment as part of the equation. And people are willing to invest because of the opportunity and realizing that many consumers out there are looking for sustainable products, right?
Yes, that's true. True. It's true, David.
Yep. And so this particular picture right here, this is a winery that my students and I visit when we go to Italy. This is a winery located at the hill at the bottom of Mount Vesuvius, which if you know Mount Vesuvius, that is the volcano that the ash buried Pompeii. And it's still an active volcano. It's not as active as Mount Etna, which is currently bubbling a little bit, but and actually, I don't know if anyone had seen an interesting story this past week talking about at Pompeii, they've been able to dig through the ash and find some casts, and we're able to make casts of vines that were grown during that period, and they're now being able to develop clones of those vines so that they can regrow natural grapes that were indigenous in that area. And
Yeah,
and
of course, the
no, go
volcanic
ahead.
soil is
Go ahead.
really
I'm sorry.
fertile.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean,
Yeah, and
yeah,
one,
they grow it on volcanic soil, which is more
no,
fertile.
absolutely. That's a great point. So, so not only, in America, if we were looking at this particular vineyard right here, being at the base of Mount Vesuvius, that soil there is entirely volcanic rock and ash. And if we were in America and we were opening a vineyard, we would scrape all that, we would bring in all new soil, and we would do it. But there, that's not sustainable. So they want to learn how to grow their vines in that material. And so the vines that they've grown have actually become much stronger growing in that environment. And so that's another way that they've shown sustainability. There's also a winery. I don't know if anyone has read this story. There's a few wineries actually, but there's a couple that have really gotten into underwater fermentation of wine. And so they went back in history and found that the Romans actually might have done some of this. And so these wineries in Italy, once they bottle their wine, they're taking them offshore into the waters off the coast and letting them age underwater at 7 atmospheres down which equals the same as the pressure on Earth here at the surface. And so they let them age underwater for 36 months. And so that's another new technique that they are
Yeah,
doing.
interesting.
It's just
And it's really
amazing.
sustainable as well.
And so I know that you have, you know, UNESCO heritage sites in your country.
Yes, of
UNESCO
course.
has, Italy actually has, I believe, the most UNESCO sites. I think they have 55 sites in Italy, and many of them are vineyards, actually, or the landscapes around the vineyards. And so this is just a picture of one, but just another example of how they are preserving. One of the things I wanted to highlight, though, was Italy has over 2,000 variety of grapes.
Wow.
And at this point, only about 600 have been cataloged. And you can see this map. These are wine growing regions. And if you go down to this light green area down toward the bottom of the screen, you see Campania. That's where Sorrento is. And in the Campania region, they grow 4 grapes. They grow Anaico, Filangia, they grow Fiori, and they grow Greco di Tufo. And so those are the 4 indigenous grapes in that area. Now, the wines that come to America are primarily northern wines, and you're gonna go into a shop here in America, and you'll see wines that have Sauvignon Blanc, which is actually not an Italian wine, but you can see in the north they also grow Merlot. But Sangiovese is the largest exported grape, and most of that comes from the north. But the smaller cities are beginning to use their local grapes as means of bringing their expression to the marketplace.
That's interesting, David. In our country, we have 2 2 producers of local wines, which is still in Bali, and the grapes is also grown local. But here in Italy, wow, they have like more over 2,000. Okay, back to Farida, I suppose. Well,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
so fast.
Yeah, sorry to jump into this conversation. David, if you could stop sharing for a minute.
Yes, I will.
So this is exciting, and this is, you know, making us, I don't know about all of you, but it's making me hungry and thirsty. And so thank you, Amelia, and thank you, David. We will continue the discussion, but at this point in time, we are opening it up for questions. And audience members, you can post any question that you want at this point in time, and I'm seeing them already in my devices. And so if I may, Imelda, you're not muted. Yeah, Imelda? I think you
No,
are.
I'm fine.
Oh, okay, all right. So I see a few questions already popping up, if I may start. Again, audience members, just shoot your questions out to us. The first question is a contradiction, which I find really interesting. So tourism is perceived as a hedonistic sort of enterprise, in a sense that it's an industry of indulgence. And so does it conflict with, and in what ways does it conflict with the sustainable tourism movement? So I think that's one of the questions. If you want to, either one of you want to take that, that'd be great.
All right, sure. Thanks, Farida. David, you want to take it, or I can add to your explanation?
I can start. Yes, obviously, as we know, tourism in many parts of the world has a bad rap, right? We are overcrowding some areas, and obviously we have the carbon footprint of traveling. And so that's why it's important that these smaller destinations develop their own products so that we can spread the travel out, but also that we can attract people from within the country or within the local area that don't have to travel as far to find those products or services. And so all of us in tourism understand that we need to be part of the solution, and we are dedicated to that. And you know, I have children, others have children. You know, we want it to be a better place in the future. And so sustainable tourism, sustainable gastronomy are just part of the solution, but we are trying to move that needle.
Yes, I agree with that, David. Well, Farida, as we all know that after the pandemic situation, we really have to change what the tourism industry is like before. Mass tourism and also tourism that only impact or benefiting certain parties, not everyone. So we would like to implement the principles of sustainable tourism in order for the tourism industry itself to sustain. So there are four principles that we have to pay attention more when we talk about sustainable tourism. The first one is how we manage all things to be sustainable. So it's like sustainable management. It is one of the pillar. And then the second one is about how we start to paying more attention and awareness to the local community by benefiting tourism activities to their welfare. So in that case, tourism can be enjoyed by everyone, not only the visitors, but also the local can benefit from tourism activities. And then besides that, if we want our industry to grow and also to sustain, what we're selling in our industry is experience, actually, which is related to if we want to go places, we want to study about cultures, we want to experience about food, about wine. So, well, it's our duty to preserve those cultures to be enjoyed by the next generation as well as the environment as well. So if we talk about we visit places like Indonesia, we're nominated to be one of the most beautiful country in the world, David and Varda. It's because of our natural nature, and we want to make sure that we conserve those natures so we can benefit and also be enjoyed by many others, the young generation and also the generations after the generations. So sustainability is more not just about environment, but also it involves everything, the management, the cultural preservation, and also community benefit. I think it's about that, Farida. Thank you.
There are two questions that have just come in on via text. One is a purely economic question, and the other one is about brand love. And so the first question is, what percentage of people in terms of your research and your surveys and whatnot of tourists are interested in sustainable gastronomy? Who are they? What are the demographics of those individuals?
Well, a growing number of people or visitors right now are they're opting for sustainable travel. We can see it surveys from booking.com or ticket.com. They're providing services like eco lodge, promoting sustainable restaurants. So that proves like perhaps more over 70% now from the travelers. It's a growing number of demand in sustainability or in sustainable tourism, Farida. That's from my side, from the data that I've just read recently. What about you, David?
Yeah, and it continues to grow as a method for choosing a destination. Is it sustainable? Obviously, part of that is driven by the younger demographic, right? So we're seeing that, but we are definitely seeing that people that are interested in that have that love, as we talked about a second ago, for a destination or for a wine, that a lot of that is driven by this ecotourism mindset. And so they would shy away from any place that wasn't pursuing those type of practices. And so it is, and you're going to find that that continues to grow. Now, we have the issue, of course, of, you know, there are businesses, there are, you know, places out there that talk the talk, but don't walk the walk, right? but consumers can see through that. And, you know, they may go there once and say, no, this is really not what's happening here. But you know, those that do are invested in that and are showing their consumers what they do, those are the ones that are going to attract those travelers.
Well, that's an interesting, I think the discussion, there's a bit more of a few questions about the demographics of that and whether it puts extra pressure on the local community to, you know, engage in ecotourism. So that's one set of questions. The other question is, I think specifically, so if you want to take that question on, I think, you know, we'll be there. And I think there's one that's just come in. Please start talking about policy intervention from the local or central government a little bit. How do they support the sustainable gastronomy in both countries? David or Imelda?
Imelda, you want to start with that?
All right, sure. Well, in our country, our government has just started to have this, what we call it, the minister's regulation from our Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. We have a standard for sustainable tourism destination, sustainable tourism village, and sustainable tourism hotel or accommodation, as well as tour operator, which is coming soon, being drafted. So our government has emphasized all of the companies that are operating tourism enterprises, small, medium, and every other companies that are also operating as third party or second party from our company, to be able to practice those standards and apply them in their operation. So I think that's something from our government as a start to emphasize the importance of implementing sustainable tourism in our country. What about you, David?
Yeah, obviously in Italy, as I mentioned with the example of Venice, you know, Italy is aware of the impact of tourism, and so they put regulations in. You know, there are areas now, Venice being an example, where they no longer allow cruise ships, right? And so the government has a pretty large role. There's a number of different programs that they do to incentivize people to pursue sustainable practices, whether it be through agricultural programs or even just tracking what they're doing. They have several initiatives now using blockchain to track their products from, you know, start to finish, where it ends up in the hands of the consumer. And so they're able to alleviate any concerns from consumers that whether this is truly a sustainable product or not. And so they are doing a number of inventive programs, and they also have developed, even from the sustainable farming practices, they developed a entrepreneurship program called Youth for Food, where they're training youth to in sustainable farming practices, but also in entrepreneurship, so that they can go out and either, you know, have their own restaurant where they're utilizing these practices or starting their own farms. So there is a number of things going on in Italy that will continue to keep them at the forefront of the European Union.
A follow-up question is, what about in the US? What are some of the, you know, interventions in the US for ecotourism and sustainable gastronomy tourism?
You know, the US tends to, in a lot of regulations, be followers rather than leaders. And so, you know, they have some practices. I don't think that, you know, in other words, in Italy, you can get some wines that are labeled under the Viva program. And so you know that those wines are sustainable. I have not seen any wines that I get from Napa that have any indication of anything. They may mention it on the bottle, but there's no certification program that I'm aware of. And again, my focus these days is on Italy. I drink, California wines, but I'm not seeing anything on my bottles of California wine. I want to go back to one of the earlier questions for a second, because I know part of that question alluded to that maybe wine tourism might be for a certain demographic, maybe with more money and a higher level. And I want to talk about a program that's being done by a gentleman in Italy. That is called Food for Good. And that was started by Massimo Batturo. And Massimo Batturo is a chef at what is considered the top restaurant in the world. He is a 3-star Michelin chef. And so that would align with what you're talking about. But what he has realized is, first of all, that 10 to 15% of the food in restaurants is wasted. And so he has opened up in many countries what he is calling a referito, which is a place where he comes in. He's done some in Italy. He's done one in San Francisco, in a few other cities in the US, where he'll come in and take over an abandoned church, an abandoned school, and he will fix it up to look like a Michelin star restaurant. And then he takes the leftover food that he collects in those cities and creates a Michelin star meal that he gives away in these cities to anyone that comes and visits his referitos. And so that is just another way that Italy is kind of spreading the idea. One man in particular is spreading the idea of how can we make this accessible to people who maybe can't come to a Michelin star restaurant, right?
So it's also preventing food waste, right, David?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's also one of the action that we can do when we're talking about practicing sustainability in tourism and gastronomy. Well, food waste is another big issue. So that's really a good example of what they're doing in Italy and what's going on there.
Mhm.
I think that will be a good best practice and example, Farida.
Mhm. So there are a few more questions, but before I take on those questions, do you have questions for each other?
Well, currently we're good. We'd love to take questions
We've
from.
been learning from each other as we've been preparing.
Yes, that's right.
So there is a question here about, I think evidently people have read the articles that you've shared. Is
Yes.
some of the things that are being asked are Bali specific, because Bali has brand love, right? But in terms of food, does it also have brand trust? And what is UPH's efforts along those lines?
Ah, I see. Okay, so a little bit, perhaps, yeah, I missed this explanation because we don't have so much time, but I just want to explain to you what we've been doing in Bali recently. So since gastronomy is something that is currently newly developed in our country, so if you want to see the website of the Bali region government there, so Ubud has been designated as the world gastronomy destination in our country. So if you're saying that what they're doing now there, of course, why Ubud is chosen to be the destination for world gastronomy in Indonesia, it's because here. Okay, can you see our slide? My
Yes.
slide? Okay.
Yep.
So the people there have these principles that represents harmonious and balance of human relation and the spiritual, social, and natural environment. So it's because those concept of Trihita Karana, people are living like in very harmoniously. This relates to the gastronomy because when we travel to one place, we also want to learn about cultures related to the food there. And well, if you know that Bali has a very potential environmental resources such as the rice field landscape, which is very beautiful. Farida, you've been there, right? See those rice fields, right?
Yes, I have. They're incredible.
So it's a valuable resource and attraction at the same time among international tourists in Ubud. So that's why if you want to learn how rice gets into your plate, David, you can see the rice field first, and then we cook the rice, and then it becomes the rice in our plate. And Bali in Ubud has the richness of the gastronomic offering from high-level restaurants, like from farm to table. They have a locavore restaurant, and they have this heritage home cooking using high-quality local produce and from surrounding area. They even cook it with traditional crockeries and also cooking utensils and cooking equipment. So that what makes it richness in gastronomic offering. And also, if we can see that Bali still to be our #1 destination in Bali, more than 50% of our international tourists is motivated to experience the cultural related attraction in Ubud. So that's why all international tourists must have taken gastronomic experience during their visit in Ubud. So it's really something that is holistic and integrated at the same time if you want to talk about gastronomy, because sustainable gastronomy tourism is always about experiencing food related with culture and also related to how the food is grown and how it involves community and local produce when we're preparing for it. So that's about it, Farida. I should stop share.
No, that's excellent. Amelda and David, if you could, share a little bit as to, vis-a-vis what Amelda was saying, what is it that UPH is doing, for instance, to kind of provide that experience for tourists? Because it is an expansion of what tourism is. You can't zip in and zip out.
We took our students in our experiential learning field trip, Farida. So I hope one day we can also get a joint experiential learning project with IU students. we bring them to Bali, and then we bring them to certain areas like in West Sumatra, and also we bring them to North Sulawesi. One of the project that we are doing currently is learning about our traditional cooking techniques, which is very rare. Not every country has it. The recently that we just went to preserve one of the culture in cooking is the technique of cooking using bamboo. So there's this bamboo hole that we fill in with all the ingredients like poultries with herbs and spices, and then we put them in a fire and they will cook it by themselves inside those tubes of bamboo. And we bring students to learn about our culture all over Indonesia, not only Bali, but other places that we have in our country. So besides that, we also take our students to have more awareness when it comes to sustainability. They prepare food not using plastic packaging anymore. They pay attention to food waste, of course, at campus, and then they even reduce their bottled drinks and bring their own bottles. So those are some actions that are really something small that they start to implement when we're talking about how can we be an act of sustainability in our daily life in our campus.
David, what do you do with your students?
So when I take my students to Italy, we not only immerse them in wine tourism, but it is a holistic entire experience. We go to cultural activities. We visit places like Pompeii and the Isle of Capri and cathedrals in Naples. And so we're doing a lot of cultural aspects. We're doing a lot around food. We're looking at the production facilities where that food is produced. And so we are seeing those sustainable practices in action. And of course, where we are in Sorrento, we don't have any transportation. We are walking everywhere. Students are walking, 7 to 10 miles a day. And so, from that standpoint, we're not adding to any pollution in Italy. We are walking everywhere. And so, they are immersing themselves in the culture. They are learning a little bit of the language. They are obviously learning the different foods and wines and all these different things. So it is a total immersion for 3 weeks in Italy, in all aspects of the country. And we not only are in Sorrento, but we travel around to some of the surrounding areas as well.
Mhm, mhm. Well, you know, there are a lot more questions that are coming, including evaluative and emotional satisfaction with sustainable gastronomy. And I think, I don't know whether you want to elaborate on that, but I think that's another question that has come up. But the other thing, because we have only a few minutes, about 5 minutes, what are the questions that are not asked? I mean, I'm sure we're all sending you the questions, but what are the questions that have not been asked that you think is important to address at this point in time? Amelda or David?
Mm-hmm. Well, perhaps from my side, students would like to know why gastronomy tourism or sustainable gastronomy is something that is very potential when we develop it in many countries. Because before, people are not aware that actually sustainable gastronomy tourism development can be very strategic for developing tourist destinations. It can bring like making tourist attraction, and many travelers see food as an integral part of their travel, right? And they want to experience it. So this is something that we can offer gastronomy richness and experiences to attract more tourists seeking new and unique sensations in destinations all over the country, not only in Indonesia. Well, considered also very strategic when we talk about cultural introduction, because many people travel to see the incredible local culture. So this is one way that we can promote our tourist destination. And when we talk about tourism, tourism is the business of happiness, right, Farida? We want all visitors to be happy. So we have to offer many products that will not only bring benefit to the visitors, but also bring benefit to the local community as well.
And I'd like to build on that because I think, we probably didn't spend as much time talking about the empowerment of local communities, right? Because that's what we're doing. We are involving the community members in our lives, and we are involved in their lives, right? And so we're bringing money into the destination. They are benefiting economically from that. And so there's a lot that is going on. And again, people that are traveling under this type of tourism are going to be looking for those destinations that they can support, that they have love for. And the love could be for the countryside, for the view. It might be for the product. We talked earlier about the difference between northern and southern Italy wines and grapes, and where the exports are going to the US. The exports are coming from northern Italy primarily, and those are the more expensive wines. But people that travel to southern Italy and drink very good wines that are very inexpensive wonder, why is that? Well, the reason is because when you have 2,000 varieties of grapes, not all of them are produced in large enough quantities to sell, and they don't garner that reputation. But they are very good wines. And so you can buy wines in southern Italy for pennies on the dollar compared to northern Italy, but still be experiencing very good wine and supporting communities that in many ways might need bigger support than those communities in the north.
Thank you. I think we're at this point in time wrapping up in the conversation. We are a minute away, and I want to take this opportunity to thank both Amelda from Universitas Pelita Harapan and also to David Smiley from the School of Public Health. If you've not been to UPH to Jakarta, this is an open invitation, right, Amelda?
Yeah, sure. Please do come. Farida has been here, David perhaps, and perhaps your students would like to or being interested to come as well. You're most welcome, Farida and David.
Yeah, I'll probably get some questions in class tomorrow, like when is the class being developed in Bali?
That would be great. We can go to Bali together with all of the students from both of our universities.
Right. So thank you so much. Sorry, Pruk Sapong has a question on the evaluative criteria, but we can
Mhm.
proceed that discussion down the road. Thank you to those who've posted questions, and thank you to both of you for engaging us and helping us learn about sustainable tourism and gastronomy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
day and good
you.
evening.
Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.